I break couples up for a living. One morning, a young woman entered my office and hired me to destroy her boyfriend's marriage without exposing his affair. Then I read the boyfriend's name, Andrew Cole, my husband. At that exact moment, Andrew texted asking whether I wanted Paris or Singapore for our anniversary. The woman across from me, Jenna Bird, lowered her eyes shyly. My boyfriend has decided to divorce his wife, she said. He says she's a good person, so he doesn't want to hurt her. We want her to file first. In my third year as a breakup specialist, I had finally received my own marriage as a case. My work usually began where love ended. Clients paid me to create the conversations they were too cowardly to have, to make partners leave before legal papers appeared. I had heard every excuse for betrayal. I had never expected my husband to walk into my office through someone else's mouth. I placed an intake form in front of Jenna and kept my face professional. How long have you been together? 3 years. We met at a hospital. She smiled at the memory. Andrew had been smoking in a hallway while a family member underwent serious surgery. She comforted him. Within a week, he asked her to become his girlfriend. Was the day you met today? I asked. She brightened. Yes. How did you know? Because 3 years earlier, on this date, I had been inside an operating room giving birth to Andrew's daughter. The labor became an emergency C-section. I lost consciousness 3 times. While doctors fought to keep me and our child alive, my husband met his mistress in the hallway. I asked whether she knew about our 3-year-old daughter, Lily. Of course. Andrew promised I'll be her new mother after the divorce. Children that age don't know the difference. She'll accept whoever is there. Then Jenna told me Andrew had shown her a photograph of the scar across his wife's stomach. He says looking at it makes him sick, she said. Why would a woman with a body like that cling to a man who doesn't want her? The scar she mocked was where surgeons had cut me open to bring his daughter into the world. I asked whether the wife knew he hated touching her. Jenna laughed. She would have to be an idiot not to notice. He's passionate with me. He says he has been starving at home. Imagine going 3 years without intimacy and thinking your marriage is normal. Andrew and I had slept apart for 2 years. He told me it was because childbirth had caused me so much pain that he could never risk another pregnancy. Before that, we had 8 years of history. In college, he once jumped from a second-story window to bring me medicine. He crossed the city for my favorite dessert when I cried. He attended every prenatal appointment and promised that Lily and I were his whole world. I had mistaken rejection for tenderness. Every evening, he still kissed my forehead, asked about work, and played with Lily before bed. The performance of Family was so consistent that I never realized the marriage had become his cover story. What exactly do you want from me? I asked. The wife had to initiate the divorce. She could never learn about the cheating. Andrew had built his career with help from my family, and Jenna feared I would destroy him if I knew the truth. He has worked so hard, she whispered. Please protect him. The request revealed their plan clearly. Andrew wanted the reputation of a faithful husband even while replacing his wife. Jenna wanted the benefits of winning without ever being named the woman who helped him cheat. They had hired me to manufacture innocence for both of them. I smiled. Leave it to me. The second she left, I called my oldest friend. Find the best investigator and divorce lawyer in your firm. I want every detail of Andrew's last 3 years. Then tell my father to pull our family's investments from his businesses. The evidence arrived before sunset. My investigator warned me to brace myself. The drive contained more than photographs of an affair. It documented a second household built with my money, a campaign to replace me, and plans that involved my child. Each file forced me to revise a memory. A business trip became a weekend with Jenna. A late meeting became a jewelry appointment. Gifts Andrew presented as thoughtful discoveries were leftovers from purchases made for her. The first video showed Andrew in a luxury restaurant presenting Jenna with 9,999 roses. On my last birthday, he claimed he was busy and brought me one dying rose from a street vendor. Another recording showed him wrapping an arm around her waist while buying designer clothes and jewelry. A free stuffed animal from the cashier became Lily's birthday gift. Bank records revealed enormous consulting payments flowing from marital accounts into Jenna's private account. The transfers had been split across companies and disguised as legitimate expenses. Andrew had not acted impulsively. For 3 years, he had calculated how much he could steal without attracting my attention. Some payments coincided with moments he claimed the business was struggling and asked my father for additional support. My family's money had not merely funded Andrew's growth. It had financed the secrecy he now wanted me to protect. Then I found messages between Jenna and Lily's preschool teacher. Pretending to be Lily's mother, Jenna asked what my daughter ate when she slept and who her friends were. She and Andrew planned to attend the next parent-teacher conference together as a couple. This wasn't only an affair, they were rehearsing my removal from my daughter's life. Before I could confront him, Jenna sent me a photograph of a new dress. My boyfriend is taking me and his daughter to meet his parents tonight. What do you think? Andrew's text arrived seconds later. My parents miss Lily. I'm taking her to dinner. You've worked hard, so I bought you a movie ticket. Relax tonight. He included a photograph of our smiling child outside preschool. Lily trusted the person holding the camera. She had no idea her father was taking her to practice accepting a replacement mother. That photograph removed the last temptation to confront Andrew privately and protect him from embarrassment. I replied that I would enjoy the movie. Then I drove to his family's estate. Andrew kept checking whether I had reached the theater. I searched for an event at the mall, sent him a screenshot, and told him it was crowded. Love you, he answered. I entered the estate through a side gate wearing a hat and mask. I did not hide because I was afraid of them. I wanted to hear what they said when they believed the wife, the daughter's mother, and the source of so much family money could not hear. Nearly every Cole relative was present. I remained outside long enough to hear them discuss the divorce as a completed fact. They joked that Andrew had finally escaped the wealthy wife who made him feel inferior. None mentioned that my family's capital had created the career they now credited entirely to him. Andrew's mother rushed to welcome Jenna, calling her a good girl and warning Andrew to treat her well. His father said she looked healthy enough to give the family a son. That sentence explained the eagerness around the room. Lily was not simply forgotten, she had been judged insufficient. Jenna represented the grandson they believed would correct my failure. Jenna announced that her doctor had confirmed everything was in working order. They showered her with gifts while Lily stood forgotten beside them. Andrew's uncle toasted the new couple. I had loaned that man $200,000. His aunt had once cried with gratitude when I arranged her daughter's education abroad. abroad. His brother called me family each time another failed company needed rescue. Their approval of Jenna arrived with no concern for the woman who had repeatedly kept them afloat. His aunt praised Jenna. I had used my connections to send her daughter abroad. His younger brother raised a glass to their future son. My family had rescued every business he started. They had all taken my money and kindness. Now they celebrated as if I had never existed. The betrayal widened beyond Andrew. His family had accepted my help while waiting for a woman who could give them a grandson. Their affection had always been an investment, and they believed Jenna was the better return. Then Andrew's aunt pushed Lily in front of Jenna. Say hello to your new mommy. Lily shook her head. No, my mommy is Leslie. Please call her to get me. Her grandmother twisted her ear. Stop being stupid. She is your mother now. Say it. Jenna collapsed into Andrew's arms and whimpered that Lily didn't like her. He held his mistress and promised that once they married, Lily would obey her and he would never interfere. That was enough. I removed my mask and stepped through the patio doors. Conversation died. Glasses stopped halfway to mouths. Andrew's arm remained around Jenna until he saw my face. This is a family dinner, I said. Why wasn't the actual wife invited?
The silence in the grand dining room was deafening. Andrew froze, his arm slipping from Jenna's waist as if her skin had suddenly turned to hot iron. Leslie, he stammered, his face draining of all colour. What are you doing here? You said you were at the movies. Changed my mind, I said calmly, stepping forward. I didn't look at him. I looked straight at Lily, whose eyes were wide with tears. I held out my arms. Lily, come here. Lily broke away from her grandmother and ran to me, burying her face in my skirt. I picked her up, feeling the frantic heartbeat of my terrified 3-year-old. I stroked her hair, soothing her before turning my gaze back to the room full of parasites. Leslie, listen to me, this isn't what it looks like, Andrew began, taking a step toward me, his hands raised in a pathetic gesture of pleading. Jenna is she's a colleague's sister. We were just. Save it, Andrew, I said, my voice echoing off the high ceilings. I know about the 3 years, I know about the 9,999 roses, I know about the consulting fees transferred from our marital bank accounts, and I know about your little visit to my office this morning, Jenna. Jenna gasped, backing into Andrew's side, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. You're his wife. The idiot with the stomach scar, yes, I replied with a tight, icy smile. Andrew's mother stepped forward, her face contorted in a mix of panic and indignation. Leslie, you have no right to burst in here and make a scene. Andrew is a successful man, and if he wants... Successful man, I interrupted, turning to her. Every cent Andrew has ever made, every contract he ever signed was backed by my family's venture capital. And speaking of money, I turned my eyes to Andrew's uncle. Uncle Richard, my lawyers filed a formal demand for the immediate repayment of the $200,000 personal loan I gave you. You have 48 hours before we place a lien on your house. Richard's jaw dropped. What, Leslie, you can't. And David, I looked at Andrew's brother, who suddenly looked very small. My father pulled all funding from your tech startup 20 minutes ago. The board is meeting tomorrow morning to initiate foreclosure. Chaos erupted in the room. Accusations and panic shouts began flying between the family members, but I didn't care to listen. I looked directly at Andrew, whose phone began to buzz furiously in his pocket, likely his chief financial officer calling to report that my family's firm had frozen all corporate credit lines. We're going home, Lily, I whispered to my daughter. As I turned to leave, Andrew lunged forward, grabbing my arm. Leslie, please, you're destroying my life. We can talk about this. Think of our family. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up into his desperate, pathetic eyes. You destroyed this family 3 years ago in a hospital hallway. I'm just balancing the books. I shook him off and walked out into the night, leaving the echoes of his crumbling empire behind me. The next morning, the fallout was swift and brutal. By 8 a.m., Andrew's company was in full damage control. News had leaked to the board that the primary benefactor, my family's investment group, had pulled out completely, citing financial irregularities and breach of contract. I sat in my office, sipping coffee as my lead investigator, Mark, slid a thick folder across my desk. We found the ghost companies, Leslie, Mark said, a satisfied grin on his face. Andrew wasn't just paying Jenna's rent. He was funneling money into an offshore account registered under her name to buy a luxury villa in Bali. Tax evasion, corporate fraud, and embezzlement. He was planning to clean out your joint accounts entirely by next month. He thought I was too distracted raising our daughter to notice, I said, eyeing the documents. What about Jenna? She's panicking. She called your agency 3 times this morning, trying to reach the breakup specialist to ask how to handle the sudden press coverage. She still doesn't realize you and the firm. I smiled. Schedule an emergency meeting with her at noon. Tell her I have a foolproof strategy to salvage the situation. At precisely 12 o'clock, Jenna walked into my private conference room. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, her hair hastily pulled back, wearing a modest dress in a desperate attempt to look respectable. When I walked in and sat across from her, her breath caught in her throat. You, she whispered. You're the specialist. I am, I said, resting my hands on the table. And as your hired consultant, I'm here to give you the advice you paid for. Leslie, please, I didn't know. Andrew told me you were cold, that you hated him, that you forced him to stay. Jenna babbled, tears welling in her eyes. He said you didn't love Lily. The performance, Jenna. You sat in that chair yesterday and mocked the scar I got giving birth to my daughter. You tried to replace me in my child's school. I leaned forward, my voice dangerously low. You wanted to play the game. Now you're going to play by my rules. What do you want? She whimpered. Andrew is ruined, I said flatly. His assets are frozen, his board is suing him for embezzlement, and his family is currently turning on each other over the debts I'm collecting. If you stay by his side, you will be named as a co-conspirator in his fraud trial. That Bali villa, the IRS already knows about it. Jenna's face turned ghostly white. No, I had nothing to do with the money. He gave it to me. Then you have one option, I said, pushing a legal document toward her. Sign this affidavit detailing every single asset, gift and transfer Andrew made to you over the last 3 years. Turn state's evidence against him. Do it now and my lawyers will exclude you from the civil suit. Refuse and you go down with him. She stared at the paper, her hands shaking violently. The illusion of her grand romance had vanished, replaced by the ugly reality of self-preservation. Without a word, she grabbed a pen and signed her name on every line. An hour later, Andrew burst into my office without knocking. He looked unhinged, his suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. Leslie, what did you do? He yelled, slamming his hands on my desk. The bank froze my personal accounts. The board suspended me. My brother is threatening to sue me because his business collapsed overnight. I didn't even look up from my laptop. I told you 3 years ago that if you ever hurt this family, I would undo everything we built. You just didn't realize that I built it, not you. Made a mistake. He sobbed, falling to his knees beside my desk. He reached out, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled away. It was just a stupid affair. I was lonely, Leslie. You were always busy with Lily. You never looked at me the same way after the surgery. Not blame my daughter, and do not blame the surgery that saved my life, I snapped. Standing up and towering over him. You cheated on me while I was unconscious on an operating table. You brought that woman into my daughter's life. You took the money my father earned with his sweat and blood to buy roses for a girl young enough to be your student. Break up with her, Andrew pleaded, tears streaming down his face. I'll throw her out today. I'll do whatever you want, just call off the lawyers, please. Don't take my company. At that exact moment, the side door of my office opened. Jenna stepped out, holding the signed affidavit in her hand, looking at Andrew with utter disgust. Andrew froze, staring at her in shock. Jenna, what are you doing here? He offered to throw you out, Jenna, I said calmly. Just like he offered to discard me. Jenna sneered at him. You pathetic coward, you told me you were a self-made man. You're nothing but a thief living off your wife's money. I handed everything over to her lawyers, Andrew. Every text, every offshore account, every gift. You betrayed me, Andrew stuttered, scrambling to his feet. You betrayed yourself. Jenna spat before turning on her heel and walking out, leaving Andrew completely isolated. He stood in the center of the room, looking around as if waiting for someone to wake him up from a nightmare. Your divorce papers will be served at your office by 3 p.m, I said, sitting back down. I'm suing for sole custody of Lily, full restitution of embezzled funds, and the forfeiture of all corporate stock. You have 10 minutes to pack your things from our house before the locks are changed. Over the next 2 weeks, the collapse of Andrew Cole was the talk of the city's financial sector. With Jenna's affidavit and the mountain of evidence collected by my team, the court acted swiftly. Emergency injunctions froze all of Andrew's remaining personal assets. Because the funds used to purchase his luxury cars, high-end watches, and investments were proven to be stolen from marital accounts and my family's firm, the court ordered immediate seizure. I stood on the driveway of our suburban estate, watching as a flatbed tow truck hauled away Andrew's prized vintage Porsche. Andrew stood on the sidewalk, wearing a cheap suit he had bought at a department store. The only clothes he could afford after his accounts were frozen. He was holding a single cardboard box containing his personal papers. You didn't have to take the car, Leslie, he said bitterly, his voice raspy. How am I supposed to get to my legal hearings? The bus runs every 20 minutes from the corner, I replied, standing beside my father who had come to oversee the final eviction. Leslie, Andrew's father stepped out of a taxi, rushing up the driveway with a look of desperation. Leslie, please, talk to your father. They are repossessing our family home. The bank says the mortgage was backed by your family's collateral and now they're calling the loan. My father stepped forward, his eyes like flint. You stood in your dining room 2 nights ago and celebrated the woman you hoped would give you a grandson, while my daughter and granddaughter were treated like garbage. You reaped the benefits of my daughter's generosity for a decade. Now you will pay for your own roof. We have nowhere to go. Andrew's mother cried from inside the taxi. I suggest you find a cheap apartment, I said indifferently. Children your age don't know the difference. You'll accept whatever is there. Using Jenna's exact words back on them left the old couple speechless. Andrew buried his face in his hands, weeping openly on the curb as the tow truck drove away. The custody hearing took place a month later. Andrew, desperate to retain some form of leverage, had filed for joint custody, claiming that I was alienated from him and using our daughter as a weapon. He showed up to court with a court-appointed lawyer, looking hollowed out and grey. I sat at the petitioner's table with my legal team, composed and dressed in a tailored navy suit. Lily was safe at home with my mother, completely shielded from the mudslinging. When Andrew took the stand, his lawyer tried to portray him as a devoted father who had merely lost his way in a difficult marriage. Mr. Cole, my lead attorney Victoria, began her cross-examination. You claim you are a fit and dedicated father to Lily. Is that correct? Yes, Andrew said quietly. I love my daughter more than anything. I see, Victoria said, pulling up a series of high-definition photos on the courtroom monitors. Then can you explain these? Photos taken by your former mistress, showing you bringing Lily to meet your parents while instructing her to call another woman mommy. Andrew flinched. I was trying to transition her smoothly. Can you explain this text message? Victoria continued, reading from a printout, sent to Lily's preschool teacher, where your mistress pretended to be her mother to change her emergency contact list without Mrs. Cole's knowledge. The judge frowned heavily, leaning over her bench to inspect the evidence. Mr. Cole, the judge interrupted, her voice stern. Did you allow a non-custodial partner to impersonate your child's mother at her school? We thought it would be easier. Andrew stammered, his defense completely disintegrating. Victoria pressed on, submitting the final nail in his coffin, psychological evaluation, reports detailing Lily's distress after being forced to reject her mother at the family dinner, along with bank records showing Andrew had skimmed money from Lily's trust fund to pay for Jenna's luxury gifts. Stealing from your own daughter's future to fund an affair, Victoria said softly, turning to the judge. Your Honour, Andrew Cole is not just an unfaithful spouse, he is a financial predator who poses a direct threat to his child's emotional and financial well-being. The judge didn't even deliberate for long. 10 minutes later, she issued her ruling, sole legal and physical custody to Leslie Cole. Andrew was granted supervised visitation rights for 1 hour a week at a court-designated facility, contingent on full payment of child support. Andrew slumped over his table, sobbing uncontrollably as the gavel struck. 6 months later, the dust had finally settled. Andrew's company had declared bankruptcy. Facing multiple counts of corporate embezzlement and tax fraud brought by my family's legal team, he accepted a plea bargain to avoid federal prison. He ended up with 5 years of probation, a massive restitution debt that would take him a lifetime to pay off, and a job as a mid-level clerk at a shipping company, earning minimum wage, with half his paycheck garnished every month for child support and legal fees. Jenna had disappeared from the city entirely, her reputation destroyed in high society circles, working at a small retail store 2 states over to pay off her own legal expenses. One afternoon, I sat in my office at the breakup agency. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over my desk. On the wall behind me hung a new frame, a painting Lily had made for me, showing the 2 of us holding hands under a bright yellow sun. My assistant knocked on the door. Leslie, your 2 p.m. appointment is here. Send them in, I said, closing the client file I was working on. The door opened, and a young woman stepped inside, looking nervous and uncertain. She clutched her handbag tightly to her chest, her eyes searching mine for help. Hello, she said softly. Are you the specialist who helps people end things? I smiled gently, motioning for her to take a seat across from me. I am, I said, placing a clean intake form in front of her. Tell me your story. Let's make sure you get exactly what you deserve.